So let's examine this a little bit. What exactly is religion? Now, I don't know what the dictionary says, but religion is a familiar and present way of life, so we know what it is in reality, on the ground. Of course, it all sounds great, like the Russian Constitution. Sounds the communist constitution. Sounds really good on paper. But what is it really? So at the beginning, and it's reasonable that things would start this way, religion simply was obedience to a divine code. Right? God gave us a bunch of instructions. Obedience to those instructions, that's religion. What is the purpose of the whole thing? Well, you're mortal. What's going to happen after? Aren't you worried? Well, we weren't worried, but they got us worried. And then we suddenly were concerned what's going to be after life. And so religion came along and said, we can guarantee you a good seat in heaven. But it didn't take very long, and we suddenly had many religions, each one claiming that they have the tickets. And that if you want to get to heaven, you got to follow their rules. My point is, it was obedience. Obedience. You have to obey. Obedience will get you to heaven. Obedience in a very realistic way makes understanding unnecessary. You don't need to know, you don't need to understand, just do what you're told and you'll be fine. Not surprisingly, there were many people who were not inspired by that. Then it got worse. It's not just that you don't need to understand and that you don't need to ask questions. You're not allowed to. If you're asking questions, that's rebellious. You're not being obedient. And so the first stage was religion demanded obedience. The second stage is it demanded ignorance. Demanded ignorance. People who had previously been brilliant, intelligent, widely knowledgeable, suddenly became dumb. Religion dumbed down the population. So it wasn't that you don't need questions, it was all of a sudden, a question is evil. So much has been written and so much has been said about the reaction to that kind of dehumanizing of the human being. And there was the backlash against religion, anti-religious, and so on. And the argument was, you can't just tell me what to do and turn my brain off. So we're not going to go there tonight because that's well established. There's another thing that religion did, which today is becoming very burdensome and unhealthy. And that is, religion made us dependent. The first thing you're taught in a religious education is that you are dependent. The religion, all religions, eventually became the message of dependence. You are helpless. You cannot handle life by yourself. You must depend on God. Only He can help you, and so on and so forth. Aside from being born in sin, which is a theological concept, but just the fact that your business will not succeed, your health will not stay, you cannot even survive the traffic without help from heaven, so you're totally dependent. That means that we are needy. And if you want to get your needs met, you have to pray a lot, you have to obey God, stop asking questions, and the whole thing. So now we have three problems. First of all, we have to be obedient. Secondly, we have to dumb down. And thirdly, we have to recognize and feel how dependent we are and how helpless we are without God. All three concepts are true. We are dependent on God. And yes, you have to obey Him. And when it comes to God, we're all dumb. It's all true. So what are we doing to fix it? It seems like religion keeps telling us of our problems, but doesn't get to a solution. As we get closer to Mashiach, the world becomes more godly, despite what you read in the headlines. The world is becoming more godly. But that's not reported. It doesn't make headlines. One of the ways in which the world is becoming more godly, we are coming to the realization that it's not true that I have to obey God. It's not true that I must sacrifice my well-being, my desires, my appetite to His will. It's not true that I have to stop thinking and dumb down. And it's not even true that I am needy. This is something really godly, and it's a really new development, and it's universal. The development is, I did not ask to be born. The reason I didn't ask to be born is because I don't need to. If I needed to, I would ask. I'm not bashful. We don't ask to be born because we don't need to. Is that true? Why do we need to be born? Why do you need to be born? What were you missing before you were born? If I don't need to be born and I didn't ask to be born, how can I be needy? I came into this world not needing anything, including life. I don't need it. But somehow, as soon as I get here, I'm burdened with all sorts of needs. So what happens? You grow up. You are raised with the message. You must. You have to. I think the first message, you have to catch the school bus. You have to get to the bus on time. Hurry up. Why do I have to catch the bus? Because you have to go to school. Why do I have to go to school? Aside from the fact, I'm 6 years old, what do you mean I have to? I am totally unreliable. How can I have obligations and responsibilities? Who would trust me? I have to get to the bus. So if a child 6 years old is a little brighter than the average kid and he said, I have to get to the bus? No, you got to get me to the bus. So don't rush me. It's your burden, not mine. I'm 6. But the message doesn't stop. You have to. You have to get good grades. You have to pass all the tests. You have to do your homework. You have to graduate. You have to make it into the best college, and then you have to get a job. And by this time, we're at this point, we're ready to quit. Don't want a job. Don't need a job. Whoa, if you don't have a job, how are you going to pay your bills? I don't want to pay bills. I didn't ask to be born and I have to pay the bill? You invite me to lunch and then you give me the bill? Something doesn't add up here. So now you have to pay taxes. And the mortgage. And your kids' tuition. So this is becoming really burdensome, and for some reason, it used to work. It used to work. You told a kid you've got to make it in time for school, they got up in the middle of the night. Like back on the farm, you got to milk the cow. Well, if I got to, then I get up and I do it. Today, you tell a kid you got to milk a cow, and it's like, I have to milk a cow? What, did I create cows? I didn't even ask to be born. How could it be my job to milk cows? So it gets a little heavy and depressing. So we figure, okay, let's go for therapy. Because, this is getting to be a little depressing and heavy. You go for therapy, and guess what you find out? You have needs you never even thought of. Forget the taxes. What are you going to do about the fact that your mother hates you? You got to fix that. What about the fact that you were neglected when you were a baby? You got to go back and be rebirthed. Oh my God. I didn't ask to be born the first time. I have to do it again? Now you know you have problems you never even thought of. So you figure, okay, this is not working. Let me go to religion. Maybe God will comfort me. So you go to religion. You know what you find out? You think your needs are going to end when you die? No. You're going to need there too. So what are you going to do about that? At this point, people just quit. There's no hope. I don't know. I can't imagine. It worked for thousands of years. The message that you have to was compelling, convincing, and effective. You told somebody what they have to do, they did it. Today's kids don't understand why. Why would you do it? And it could be that politics plays a big role. When you live under a czar, you get very used to the fact that you do what you're told. So if the czar says, you obey. So if your teacher says, you obey him too. If your parents say, you obey. You're into obedience, because so are your parents. Everybody obeys. Today, very different picture. If the president says everybody runs to obey, that's today's biggest joke. So who do you obey? There is no obeying anymore in daily life. So when religion comes along and says you must obey, it's like a foreign language. I don't even know what the word means. How do you do that? When the Tsar was in charge, when the emperor told you what to do, when the king ruled, you had to dumb down. What good will your knowledge do? You're stuck. Jewish life, you live in a ghetto, you live in a shtetl, where are you going to go? Your father was a butcher, you're going to be a butcher. Your father was a cobbler, you're going to be a cobbler. What do you need to know? Your life is narrow, it's predictable. What do you need to read books for? Become an apprentice and learn how to cook or how to bake or how to sew. because that's what you're going to be doing. Where do you think you're going? So when religion dumbed you down, yeah, it made sense. Everybody's dumbing me down, might as well. But the worst thing was the burden. The burden. You must. The result of this obedience, dumbing down, and neediness, the result was God got lost in the shuffle. We were obeying God, but it really didn't matter. We were obeying obedience. It didn't matter who told me to do it. You could even get confused. This commandment, is that from God or from the Tsar? And it didn't make any difference because you had to do it anyway. So who are you obeying? We pretty much forgot. We were also dumbed down, so you didn't ask too many questions. Who are we obeying? And the neediness, nobody questioned it. Because the bottom line was, get to the bus, get to the school, get your report card, get your graduation, get into a good college, get a good job, make a lot of money, so that you can pay the bills, and if not, you're going to die. Well, nobody wants to die. That was the motivation. Today, people are saying, don't threaten me. I'm going to do all of that just to not die? That's ridiculous. I didn't ask to be born. Death is no longer a threat. And this is pretty shocking. And that's why when, what was it, Mrs. Reagan, who said to the teenagers of America, just say no to drugs? And the teenagers were like, huh? Why? Well, it could kill you. Yeah, so. And the older generation didn't believe them. But they meant it. So what? Don't threaten me with death. It doesn't work anymore. That is a godly development, believe it or not. Because if we get to the truth, if we understand what God is all about and what the Torah is all about, it is not a religion. It is not obedience. It is not dumbing down, and you don't need it. You don't need it. This message that you are needy is unhealthy, it's nasty, it's cruel, and it's not true. And because it's not true, we find it so burdensome. Don't tell me what to do. Why are we so allergic all of a sudden? Why are we so allergic to rules and demands and expectations and responsibilities? It's because some sense in us recognizes that it is not true. It can't be. It can't be that I need anything. If I didn't ask to be born, what could I possibly need? So here's where psychology needs to upgrade its thinking. If you look into the soul of a human being, you will find deep, repressed, unrequited love, needs, drives. No. If you look into the soul of a human being, you will find that the person needs nothing. The real essence of you does not need anything. All needs are external, they're imposed, they're not yours, you don't need them. You're burdened with it, but it doesn't belong to you. Like, for example, I need to eat. Don't I? I mean, you gotta eat. Yes, you gotta eat, but don't call it my need. I need to stop eating. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't need to eat. I need to stop eating. Why can't I? Why can't I? Well, to live and to be healthy, you must eat. Whose weird idea was that? If you designed yourself, would you design yourself this way? Every 3 hours, drop what you're doing, time to eat. It's a ridiculous plan. Half your life you have to sleep. Who designed us this way? Wasn't Tesla. So don't say, I need to eat. I don't need this. It's not a need, it's a handicap. And I need that like a hole in the head. So to say human beings need to eat, no, human beings need to be human, not half animal. So I was talking to this young woman who was suffering from anorexia. And she had had a lot of therapy and it was under control. She was not in danger anymore. But she says, I still find eating distasteful. I said, so do I. It's disgusting. And it's a handicap. And it's humiliating. The greatest brain surgeon in the world, in the middle of a great operation, has got to stop and eat some grass, a carrot, lettuce, like a rabbit. Here's the brain surgeon of the century, and he has to eat the same things the rabbit's going to eat. In fact, the rabbit will eat it first if he doesn't grab it. So now you're in competition with a rabbit. So it's so humiliating. Anyway, I went on and on about what the Mishnah says about eating too much, etc. She says, you're worse than me. And it cured her. To find somebody worse than you, that's a good cure. I said, look, I don't know why God did this to us. It's so humiliating. But what are you going to do? You have no choice. You swallow your pride and you eat something. She was okay with that. Yes, you have to swallow your pride. So to say this is a definition of a human being needs to eat. This is not a definition of me. I don't need to eat. But I was designed with a dependence on food. I was designed with a dependence on sleep. I even have to breathe. In LA. That's not a good plan. It is so obvious, and yet it took us 5,000 years to come to this realization. I don't even need to be born. The real essence of me needs nothing. In a sense, being born means you're not free to be you. Because you would not eat and you would not sleep and you would not breathe that stuff. But you have no choice. So let's take a look at what the Torah actually says. And once you see it, it is so obvious. It is so simple, so real. What are the first words of the Torah? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. You can close the book. That's enough knowledge. You know everything you need to know. Because what does that tell you? In the beginning, which means before there was you, God created the world. So now you need to pay the mortgage. No, I don't. No, I don't. If in the beginning God created heaven and earth, He has a need. Because He created the world with a purpose. So who's needy? The creation or the creator? Who is needy, the painter or the painting? How did the painting become responsible for hanging itself? Well, now you got to hang somewhere. Well, you hang me. You're the creator. Doesn't that make a lot more sense? Is that not the truth? You remember begging to be born? Please, please, I want to pay mortgages. I want to breathe. No, we don't. At best, we would go for the 9 months of pregnancy. That's a great time. No mortgages. No school buses. It's a wonderful time. And then the trauma of birth erases the memory of the good times. So here's the story. I need nothing. God, the Creator, the perfect, infinite being, has a need. And if He has a need, it's pretty awesome. Because He doesn't know how to do things part way. Everything about Him is infinite. If He has a need, it's infinite. It's eternal. It's Him. And what is His need? To have us, so that He is not alone. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us. Take a look. Click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.